something I just heard last night, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I would want to stop learning at this point."
Okay.
Okay, no, for real. But like, we're with like, I think the last podcast we were talking about like what potentially could the truth be that they're hiding from everyone
Mm-hmm.
that you don't want to share, right, with the public.
Sure.
Like, what could that possibly be? Could it be something so crazy
Yeah.
that you'd want to stop learning? And I was listening to Tom DeLonge talk about aliens on the Steve-O podcast last night.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. I think this is where I will jump off. If it turns out to be true, I actually don't want to know that, and we're just gonna go back. Like, this is the level of reality I can accept. Potentially, I mean, maybe I want to learn more. I don't know. I'll see how you feel about this. So, the thing he was saying. So, okay, can we both agree that it's undeniable that there are unidentified aerial phenomenon (UAP)
Sure.
across the globe,
Yeah.
right? And he was saying that he recently received this is a few months ago when the interview came out, and he was saying that there's been all of these sightings near water. Okay,
Okay.
and like recently, like hundreds and almost like thousands of sightings, right? Not from people, from radar, from like military radar, because so this all happened when oh dude, I keep forgetting this guy's name. Not David Grush. I wrote it down. I forgot the guy. So he's on the Merge podcast. So he started the Merge podcast, and it's the guy that I was saying it's a nonprofit. He's looking at this from like an aerial safety issue. Like, what are these UAP? Because we don't want to hit them and kill someone, right? So he's going through like the route of logical reality in order to figure out this whole issue. Okay. So
Yeah.
what that guy was saying was that as soon as we upped our sensors, we started seeing these things every day. So before that, like, because everyone's like, "Oh, why did it increase in like, increase in our awareness, and like how come it's all of a sudden showing up?" He's like, "No, they could have been here the whole time. It's just we didn't have the sensors to detect them, but now we've upped our sensors and we could suddenly spot them." He said it was like night and day. As soon as they flipped on the radar, they're like, "What are all of these?" Okay, and then but it's been like hushed within the government. Like, we don't talk about those things. So basically, it's like every fighter pilot. Because I went back to listen to Commander Fravor on Joe Rogan, and what he was saying is there's different versions of these UAPs, and one that they see every day is it looks like a clear beach ball with a cube inside.
Okay.
That's his descriptor, right? And the Tic Tac that he saw, he's like, it's sort of like a submarine, but no like top or bottom. It's just like a Tic Tac, like a submarine, like a submarine with no like porthole or whatever. And that's the one he chased. When I listened to the podcast, so he was flying, right? And it was clear blue water over the sea. And then they saw like, if you see rocks over an ocean, you'll see water breaking, right? Like if you go to the beach, you'll see like water breaking over something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if there's a rock, like, all right, so waves. So they didn't even see the Tic Tac at first. They saw the water breaking, and they're like, "Oh, that's weird," because it's like all clear, and then there's something there.
Right.
The water's breaking. So they're like, "All right, let's check that out."
Mm-hmm.
As they went back, they saw the Tic Tac over top, and then what he hypothesizes is like it's trying to land on the thing that's under the water.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so him and his team, they have eyes on, like physical eyes on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not even radar. They turn on the radar, but they have like eyes on, and they're like, "Okay, let's go chase this thing." They don't know what it is. They're like, "Okay, is it like a helicopter?" They go closer, like, "Okay, no, it's not." So as he goes down to like intercept it, it suddenly turns towards him and flies up to meet him. And then this is when they're doing like this spiral against each other, like they're like imagine a circle, and then you're like going around the circle trying to see each other. And then what he said is he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna cut across the circle to like if you're going in a circle, cut across to like meet you where you're at, right? So I could see you." And then as he was doing that, it like darted towards him and then bolted off.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "But with the speed we're going during doing this, if it was like even a little bit faster, you'd still see it trail off, right? Because you're still matching speed, right? And you're like, okay, it's slowly going away. He's like, we would have at least seen it for a minute, like as it's bolting off,
Okay.
right? But he's like, it's almost instantaneously, you couldn't see it anymore.
Mhm.
Okay. So like it just like he's like, that's just impossible speed, so we cannot keep up with. And then 60 miles later, 60 miles towards where they're going to meet up. It's like the squadron, they have the meeting point, right? 60 miles, it's 60 miles away. Then all of a sudden they get radio in, hey, this Tic Tac's at your rally point.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It was like 3 minutes later, but it could have been instantaneous, but it takes 3 minutes for the radar to like reload because it makes a full circle or something like that.
Yeah.
It takes time, right? So they got alerted 3 minutes later, like this thing's at your rally point now.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a very credible pilot. Okay, he's the guy that went in Congress, the dude with white hair glasses.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can we deny this? Right? It's almost like if they're all saying it, and then this guy's like direct encounter, and then I listened to another podcast, and what they're saying is these have been reported since like World War II, like all the time, right? Like that they're seeing objects go into water, and even Christopher Columbus, he reported a UFO, UAP, going into water. Although like that was like so long ago, what they're saying is you can't really, associate that with the UAP we're seeing, but there's a lot of instances related to water. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, can we have that as a basis? Right? Like we both agree that there's something going on. We don't know what it is. No country knows what it is. Do you think it's like maybe tech that's not like supported?
Yeah, maybe it's like
we need a base.
That's what I'm
then
saying.
I'm gonna like build from there.
Okay, it could
You know
be.
what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's probably is it like unclassified stuff, right?
But right. So what he said was like this was in 2004. If they had the technology, it's like 20 years later, right? We're in 2023. If they had the technology at 2024, wouldn't you think that it would have been released at least 20 years later or like some variation of it? Because he's like, if we look at SpaceX, which is like the epitome of like achievement, that the way they're shooting things, it's still the old school way, right? You're like shooting these rockets with like fire. It's so archaic. It's like, why if we have the capability to like blip as fast as they do, wouldn't we have something better than just like fire rockets?
Well, I don't know. But sure. I don't know.
But logically speaking, like it's 20 years. Like, wouldn't you have a better, like, why are we still using like rockets? If this thing is like classified tech that has no propulsion system that they can see, wouldn't you just slowly release it? Like that'd be a game changer. You'd be like the most billion-dollar company in the world. Like, why would you sleep on that? Think about AI. We drop that right away. Right? So I'm ruling out classified tech.
Okay.
Or do you like no? You have a other point where you're like, actually, I could see how it would be this way.
Well, I don't know what it is.
Like,
if it could be classified.
No, because
right?
you said right, totally. But like using that logic of like it's been 20 years, wouldn't we see some derivation of that?
Well, I would have to look at. I would have to then look at like, have there been tech that it didn't really get out to the public till like 20 years later, right? That's what you'd have to show, I guess.
Yeah, but like the stealth bomber was examples of it. Like the military's been working on that for a while, but then
but I mean,
it eventually did get released.
Yeah, of course, yeah, but like, is 20 years the thing, or is like 50 years a span? Like, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, maybe. So you're saying like 30 more years, and then we'll have these
maybe
gravity propelled systems. Okay, maybe theoretically. Okay, I don't think it like if you.
That's what I'm saying. Well, all I'm saying is like you'd have to add like, so here's where they designed computers back in World War II, but didn't really get to personal computers till this many years later, right? Like when,
but like what was the difference?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know what.
Well, World War II. Like if it was World War II, like from that 1940s or whatever to like when it become
1993.
like when it become actually more usable in like normal public. I would say.
No. But wait. No. But the internet in World War II was not the same.
No. I'm not talking about internet.
You said internet.
No, computer.
Oh, computer. Okay. But the computer in that World War II time, the Turing computer, right?
Sure.
That was like a basic model.
Yeah.
Right. And now look how far we've come.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in 2004, you have that crazy amount of tech. You would have had something even better now within that span.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's not that it. So you're saying, so if this was classified
No, I'm
tech,
saying like you'd have to compare it to something like that, right? Like is
I know what you're saying about the timeline, but I'm saying at that time it wasn't commercially viable. You couldn't use it, right? So it was a rudimentary version of, like, nobody could afford a giant computer inside their house.
Okay. Yeah.
Because because the World War II one was huge,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if this, like, let's call this like the Model T version, like the old school version. So the Tic Tac is the old school version. So what they have now is going to be even more insane. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe, yeah.
Because it has to evolve, right? But then within that time, we wouldn't see like iterations come from that thing. I'm thinking most about like energy and propulsion. Because what they're saying, what the fighter pilot was saying, is it will hover in one place for 3 hours. They'll literally track it for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is insane. So at 80,000 feet is where the Earth is at curvature, right? We fly at like what, 10,000 feet or something like that.
Something like that, I think.
Right? Yeah. So they're tracking it at 80,000 feet. It'll fly down. It'll stay in that one spot for 3 hours, and then at the 3 hour mark, it'll fly back up to 80,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
This is a common occurrence happening all over the ocean. And they're literally tracking it.
Okay.
Like their radars are tracked. Like, what is that? Okay, so energy and propulsion. So they have nothing. So he was saying that with their fighter like jets, the fastest speed, at the fastest speed, they couldn't match it, and it can only run for an hour and a half, maximum time, because of gas, right? So energy consumption.
Yeah.
Right. So if there was some tech that allowed you to hover in place without being affected by weather for 3 hours, like that's an energy source that we could use across the world. Right?
Sure.
Instead of like solar or like nuclear, like what is that thing that you're using that's allowing you to have so much energy? Right? So within the 20-year span of when they first saw the Tic Tac in 2004 till now, like we haven't changed at all in terms of energy. We're still using we're trying like green energy,
sure,
solar, nuclear, you know what I mean? So it's like, so you don't think that the benefits of that craft would have slowly spilled out within the 20-year span? Like, hey guys, we're like testing this thing out now. You know what I'm saying? Like we would have heard about it.
Sure.
You agree, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, but maybe. All right, so what is the point? No, because if there is a point here that you viably see, and you're not just building like contention for contention's sake, like I really want to know, because I'm like, what is this thing?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like logically, I don't know. I don't know. You're all reporting it.
You're all,
if
yeah.
You see a different side of it, like tell me, because I'm like, what is that thing, bro?
I think I think the thing is like we got to show the evidence of this thing, right?
Which is the disclosure, which is happening right now, and I'm like, okay, now we're gonna hear about it, and that's freaky as well. Hence
So that's what I'm saying. Like that's where it has to come out. Like of course you may have seen it, you're talking about it, but you still have to show the evidence. That's the only way to really prove what you're showing or what you're saying is real.
Facts. No.
Yeah,
for sure. And it could all just be black ops. It could, because even the fighter pilot David Fravor, he was saying what he used to do with his friends is in their fighter jet thing, they would be in a canyon, and with their night vision goggles, they could see so far. And like, if there's a campsite, what they'll do is like, oh, UFO time. So they'll like fly up to the thing, turn on their like bottom lights, and then like shoot forward so that you see the bottom lights, and then they'll turn their bottom lights off, and then like, haha, they're gonna report it as a UFO because they see these random lights in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
And they would do this all the time just to make themselves laugh.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they could tell what fake UFO reports are, right? They're like, oh, that was actually me, right?
Mhm.
So if it's Black Ops, maybe they're doing the same thing to these fighter pilots. So like, haha, let's just play a little tic-tac game and like mess with your head. So potentially, you're right. There could be Black Ops, and we'll see now with the disclosure what's going on with that. Okay. But let's say it's not let's say it's not technology of this Earth.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Or like it's not human made.
Okay.
Okay. Because that's what they're saying. It's like they might be outer space, they might be from here. We don't know. So okay, so we can agree. So now we've agreed that there is something going on. There are these crafts. We don't know what they are.
Mhm.
We can agree upon that. That these people are making it up.
Making it up? I don't.
Yeah, making up the sightings. Like, you know, people are like they're like, oh, that's just like dust on your radar, or like that's just a radar blip, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
they're just making up something, right?
Mhm.
So we can agree that there's something going on, and they're not making up this story, and they're not confused about their radar.
In the sake that they're telling the truth. Okay, sure.
That's what I mean. Like, we don't
For
know what they
this-
are, but there is something going on.
Okay.
Can we agree on that? Like, that there's something going
No,
on?
they're not. But I said that we would need to agree on evidence, right? Like, if it's just what he's saying.
No, but there's so much evidence of like radar stuff, footage, pilot, like reports.
Okay.
There's like, so they're all lying?
No, that's not what they're saying. I think NASA had something earlier this week that they had
about
a news conference about the study of the UAPs.
They did? And what did it say?
Well, they sent out a written report, but they did also have a press thing. But what they're saying is they have broken down some of the footage, not all the footages, of course, whatever they've released. But they were talking about whatever is available as unclassified, right?
Yeah, like the David Fravor one, the Tic Tac. They talked about that one?
I don't know if they talk about that specific one. There is a report on it if you look it up. They explain some of them. I don't know how many they explained. I have the thing, like the website up. I haven't read through it all.
A lot of them are debunked. No, but a lot of them are debunked too, though. Like, I want them to explain the one that everyone's talking about.
Yeah,
because
so they're talking about it from the science perspective, where it's like where they're trying to get the evidence, right?
No, totally, for sure, for sure.
So like, I believe there was one like the spear thing, like over, was it like a desert place? I don't know if you remember, like some Middle East country or something.
Oh yeah, the Baghdad.
Yeah. So that one they haven't been able to explain, but they explained some other ones that were.
Okay, so this is a tactic, though. This is a tactic where you'll release false information, true debunked information amidst other information. So in the UFO community, like Jeremy Corbell, they're like, we know which ones are fake. So NASA being like, well, these are all fake. So then your mind goes, oh, they're all fake then. But it's like, no, go to the ones that we're all agreeing that we don't know what this is. Study those ones. You know what I mean? Because we already know that those are fake.
Yeah.
Like Jeremy Corbell's like, that's not real. Like, why are you telling me it's not real? We already knew it's not real. Tell me the ones that we can't identify.
Yeah, so they probably listed those ones that they haven't, because it's also like minimal evidence, so they can't really go on.
Yeah, totally. And
to be able to find out what these things are, right? So sometimes,
for sure,
and some things I can't talk about because it's unclassified.
Yeah, for sure. And the reason why. So if people are like, well, how come they don't just release the radar footage? It's like, but then you're going to admit where you're spying, and your enemies will know where you're
exactly.
spying.
That's also part of the classified or unclassified stuff. Yeah.
It's not like we don't want to not tell you about UFOs, but it's like if we tell you where we're pointing our satellites, our enemies will know where we're pointing our satellites to. So I totally get why it's classified. Makes sense.
They can only talk
But,
about
like,
they can only talk about unclassified.
unclassified.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, totally. Because like the Tic Tac one was over training grounds, so it's like, oh, we knew you trained there, so it's like totally cool, you know. But if you're like, hey, we're actually in territory that we're not supposed to be in,
yeah.
you know, that's pretty bad. You don't want to admit that. But okay, so with all this evidence and all this stuff, like with the NASA one, like I take that with a grain of salt because it's like we do know some are like the majority of them are debunkable. Like that's not real. But NASA putting that out, it's like, yeah, you're just like you're trying to like propagandize it, right? Like you're like, well, these are a bunch of these are not real, so it's all not real. It's like let's focus on the ones that are real, but we don't know what they are. That's my point of view on it, and that's also the UFO community's on it. It's like don't feed me like.
No, I think they're going through the information that you can take a look at it and see. I don't know which ones are real,
Okay,
which ones
cool.
are fake, right? I don't know. People would know that.
I don't know either. The only two that I know that are super real are the Baghdad Phantom and the Tic Tac one. And then I don't know about the radar ones because they haven't come out, but they're saying like literally every single day, all the pilots are seeing them, and they've been tracking. Like the Tic Tac one, that had been tracked for 2 weeks before it even like. So basically, what was happening is they were on a test flight, David Fravor and his team, and then the submarine or whatever was tracking these things for 2 weeks, going up and down from the sky. Like they'd be like 80,000 feet, drop down, like stay there for 3 hours, fly back up. Okay, and then they were like, "Hey, can you check this out because we've been seeing it for 2 weeks." Right, and that's when he got in. He wasn't just like passing by.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? They like said, "Hey, we need a real world eyes on this thing." And they're like, check out this vicinity, see what's going on. And that's when he saw the thing breaking over water. They didn't even see the Tic Tac, right? And that's where the story unfolds. But it's not that like this was a random encounter, is what the point is here. It's like, no, we've been tracking this for literally 2 weeks, and
Right.
now we want eyes on.
So we have footage of that?
So, what do you mean? Footage of them
Of that thing?
tracking it for?
Yeah, if
No,
it always
what do you
happens.
mean? The Tic Tac? The
Yeah.
Tic Tac?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's online. You could watch they declassified that video. It's like the famous one where it's like it was on New York Times. That's why it exploded on. This is why the whole UAP thing started from that 2004 incident. It got released in 2014. So like they had kept it under wraps, and then Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 and not Jeremy. He said he wasn't going to be a part of this, but Tom DeLonge was instrumental in getting that on the New York Times because he knew the whole story and he was just like pushing it behind the scenes to like make it to the paper. And then once that came out in 2014, that's when everyone took it seriously. Like that's when this whole disclosure thing started happening. Because like, what is this thing that we have no idea about? Right. So, yeah, you can watch that online, and it's like the actual footage of that thing. But not like a iPhone camera though. It's like it's using their sensors. They were like tracking it with their computer, and then they're looking at it with their eyes. Yeah. Okay. All right. I digress. So now that we've agreed that there's something going on, I was listening to the Tom DeLonge and Steve-O podcast, and I was tripping out because I was like, wait a minute, this. So basically, what he said was you have to look at it as a bigger story.
Okay.
And this is what freaking me out. So everyone's been like, oh yeah, what are these UAPs, right? Why are they a bunch of different types, whatever. But it's like, but what's the bigger story here? Who created them? What are they doing with them? Why are they here?
Okay.
Right? So like we're all focusing on like, are these things real? Okay, if we can accept why they're real, that they're real. Now the real question is, what are they doing here?
Sure.
And where do we fit in the storyline? And that's what was tripping me out, because he went through different UFO theories
Mm-hmm.
that were starting to make sense. He's like, so he was saying some stuff that I was like, dude, this sounds so ridiculous. It could be true, but the freaky part is I won't know if it's true, because he's like, hey, let's just hypothesize here. But he's saying it like sarcastically, as if what he's about to say is true. But he's like, I'm just hypothesizing, everyone.
Right.
But we know, no, but we know that he's been in these meetings. These CIA people have been like giving him information, right? But remember Stephen Greer, the guy who made that documentary, the
On
Close
something?
Encounters of the Fifth Time, Unacknowledged. So basically, Tom DeLonge was studying under Stephen Greer, and then they had a falling out, and then Stephen Greer said that the CIA is using Tom DeLonge as a patsy. They're giving him fake information to like manipulate him. And that's probably why when I listen to his stuff, I'm like, this sounds so ridiculous, but I don't know what's true and fake. Because even Bob Lazar too, when he was joining Area 51, what he was saying was that they made him read all these reports, right? And as he was reading, he's like, this sounds so ridiculous. But what the theory was, like what he assumed is if I started telling people, they would know who the leak is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you give different stories to different people, you're like, oh, we told this guy this story, so he's the leak, right? So now I'm going to go through some of the theories, and if these are true, I was like, okay, this is where I'd want to stop the game, because it's just too much for my brain. So one thing was, you know how they theorized that the world or our universe was started because of gravity?
Okay.
So like, okay, it's like the size of a pin. This is real science. So like the Big Bang Theory, it was the size of a pin. The gravity got the head of the pin, and then the gravity got too strong, and then it exploded, and we got the universe. And then from then on, it's been expanding, right? Through gravity. Okay. So he was saying, when you look at a star in the sky, that's not from our time. That's from the time that we see it, right? But in their time, it's like 10,000 years later.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what he's saying is that time is sort of like light. It's just stretched.
Okay. Yeah.
Which makes total sense, right? Like gravity is actually propelling time. Right? I'll just mute my phone. Gravity is pushing time forward, or light forward, and that's creating like a stretch of time. And that actually makes sense with spirituality, because what we say is the infinite moment of now. But of course it's the infinite moment of now if like if your consciousness doesn't change. Like, you know, people are like, oh, I'm 35 but I feel like I'm 10. That's because your mind doesn't change, your consciousness doesn't change, but the physical surroundings change because of the stretching of time. Like if you're listening to this on Apple or like Spotify or whatever, check it out on YouTube. I'm doing hand motions. So like time is pushing everything forward, which is like physical reality, but our mind stays centered no matter what. Like the world changes, but our mind is stationary, right?
Right.
And that's Prakriti Prashua in yoga. So like Prashua is like the consciousness, it's independent of time, and Prakriti is change, nature. It's always changing. Okay. So what he was saying is that if you can harness gravity as an energy source, you can transfer through moments in time. Which actually makes sense, because if it's just gravity that's pushing time forward, if you can manipulate gravity, why can't you just jump to different points in time?
Right. Okay.
Like you could follow that logic. I'm not saying how it's done. I'm just saying like logically that actually makes sense.
Yeah, if
Do you
that's
agree?
if those are connected.
If that's the case, if that's the case,
yeah.
we're not saying if it's real or not. I'm just saying like these are all
Sure,
theories,
sure.
but like okay, I can see how logically that would make sense.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
you're just reversing gravity to a different point in time, and that's what time travel technically could be, right? So what he was saying is that, like, what if they're like there's no evidence that shows us they're from a different planet, is what Tom was saying. So what if they're from here, just on a different timeline, different frequency.
Right.
And they're blipping in and out of our existence to see what's going on. Like, you know, like the time traveler theory?
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like maybe they're us from the future coming back to like warn us about something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, if that's true, how far does that rabbit hole go in terms of time? And that's kind of like, okay, like if let's say they came out with that and they're like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can blip any point in time. I'd be like, okay, this is like too heavy for me now. I'm cool in my salaried life, live in this apartment. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, because like, now what?
Right.
Now what from that? Can I meet my ancestor? What does time really mean? What does reality really mean? And maybe that's what it is, where they're like, we can't give you the truth about what these UFOs are, UAPs are, because if you knew, it would just break your reality.
Right. Yeah, and if
because
that's
then
if
what does it
that's
all
true,
freaking mean now?
if it's true, yeah, like how many, even though like there's rules about time, like time travel, right? Like don't meet yourself, or like you don't know the butterfly effect of it, right? So, but would people ever listen to those rules? Like, would a person follow that if that was true, right? So, I don't think people would.
Right? We would just dismantle our reality.
It would potentially become chaos, and just yeah.
Right? Is that where we're headed? And that's why they don't want to tell us, like, hey guys, we can time travel.
Maybe, yeah. If that's the case, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, like that is actually pretty heavy because, like, on the George Knapp, Joe Rogan, Jeremy Corbell podcast, one thing he said is like we all want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Right? And it's like, when I heard Tom say that, I was like, I've never thought of time like that. That it's just a gravitational wave. Because it is literally light pushing forward. That's why you can see stars in the sky from like you see a star, you're like, actually that's 1,000 years in the past.
Yeah.
You're like, what does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it's like, no, it logically makes sense. It's because light is pushed forward by gravity. So if you can harness gravity, which is what they're saying, they're literally saying these crafts are powered by gravity. So, and then Bob Lazar, like, if you can harness gravity, you can like do anything. You can time travel, you can create force fields, you can like go, you know, through different atmospheres at will.
Right.
And it's all starting to, and this is why when I was watching, I was like, wait, if you read all this stuff, it's all starting to click. It's like, this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And all the yogis, the spiritual people, were all talking about this too. It's like Prakriti Prashua. It's like, why is there this thing in our minds that is independent of time?
Right.
Like literally, I'm getting older. My physical body around me is getting older, but my mind stays the same. My consciousness stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only thing that's independent of time. Okay, here's another one that tripped me out. Speaking of consciousness, so what are we? Steve-O brought this up, and I was like, that actually makes total sense too. So if we are the infinite mind of God, so if we are like consciousness, not like a physical, not like God, you know, like
like
what we call God. If we are just like consciousness, right? So Tom brought this up actually first. He's like, life, I've realized, is a duality, and I was like, yeah, that's Taoism, bro. That's what I subscribe to. It's all yin yang, right? And he was like, they've been saying this for a while. And then Steve-O was like, if, and you know, like in yoga, they say like, we're all one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've heard that, right? So if we're all one and there's no duality, then you have like God or whatever it is, like experiencing nothing. Because you need the opposite to experience something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how would you know what happiness is without sadness?
Sure.
You need its mirrored opposite in order to say what that thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this is heavy. How do you know what heavy is? Because I know what light feels like.
Right.
Like light weight, right? So you need its opposite. So what Steve-O was saying is that one theory is that the universality, like the oneness, decided to create its opposite in order to experience something.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And from that duality created everything else. The opposite created something.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how the universality, this consciousness, this like, because like remember the consciousness is independent of time. right?
Yeah.
This consciousness, this thing that we really are, this conscious being, is the universe experiencing itself, which is what all the freaking spiritual texts have been saying. Like, you are the universe realizing itself. You are the universe, like, actualizing its reality. And it's like, spirituality will say that. But then when I heard that from this podcast, I was like, actually, that actually makes sense too. Because, like, what if you found out that we are literally just this hive mind, this consciousness? Because we both have consciousness,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
All things have consciousness, right?
Mhm.
Like, Athena is consciously aware of something,
Yeah.
right? So if that's all we are, and it was created, and that thing created the opposite in order to experience life, because it was bored. Because if you have nothing, if you have no opposite, you have nothing else. Like, you have no experience.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're following me?
Mm-hmm.
So then what if you found out that's what we all are? We're all an infant. Like, you can't die. We are immortal. Like, we are, because if you died, you just return back. Your consciousness would just return back to the universal consciousness.
Right.
Which is what Avatar was saying too. Remember, like, the tree of, you would just go back to the tree.
Yeah.
And you're like, bro, if that's what we are we literally playing? Like,
Or it's like it can work
with
with reincarnation too, right? It's just you're going.
That's
You're
what he's
like
saying.
we might not be on this planet; we'll be on another planet. That's another thing with the star seed or whatever, right? So that's
Starseed. Yeah, that's what Tom was saying too. He's like, we are infinite, and we are immortal, and that's what reincarnation is. We just keep, like, the consciousness that we have is independent of time. Our bodies will die, but it'll just morph into another thing. Or no, it won't morph. We're already a part of that thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we are.
Okay.
Like, you know, both of our consciousness is that thing. We're all pulling from the same level of consciousness, except, like, physically experienced. But it created, because it was bored, or, like, not bored. Well, I guess bored. We could say it's bored because it has nothing. Like, if you had no opposite, you would have nothing.
Right.
Like, literally, like,
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't know what something is without the opposite. So that's why it had to create the opposite. It created Taoism, duality, in order to experience life. And we are just this interplay. Like, quite literally, my life is a video game. Like, that idea of, like, what if we're just aliens? Like, people say it all the time. Like, what if we're just plugged into the Matrix and we're just playing this video game, and then when we die, we just wake up from the video game.
Right.
It's like, that actually quite literally be what's going on. So now, if that's true, so then how does that play into our reality? Would we all freak out again? Like, if they admitted, actually, this is what's really going on, would we unravel? Like, all of these things are making me like, oh yeah, we can't handle that.
Yeah, I don't think people.
Because what do we do in video games, bro? Go around killing, do whatever you want.
Sure. Right.
Would we have total anarchy and chaos? It's like, oh, we're not going to die anyways. Kill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it could be used against. Yeah, it could be used like that. Yeah, sure.
And maybe that's the fear. That's why it's like, oh, we can't actually tell you that we're a part of this universal consciousness. It sounds ridiculous, but it's tied into the UAP thing. So,
right,
like, because of the time thing, like the time
warping. Yeah.
Like, it's not like these UAPs aren't independent of this time reality thing, but, like, if they're tapping into,
you jump in through time. Yeah.
If they're jumping through time, so then what does that mean about our reality? Like, oh, okay, so we're a conscious being. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's tied in to that narrative, and it's like, if that's true, that's really heavy, man. Because I mean, like, I play my game, my video game of life like that, but I don't know how other people would take that.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I think it depends on your own individual self. If you're getting to that point, I don't see why you would. Like, it wouldn't be something you'd tell people unless you really know them.
Right? And what happens if you didn't like the place you are in the video game? Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm going to bring this example up because, like, it's the most salient example for me, but, like, one of our friends who, like, passed away of his own hand. I don't know how to say that politely, but, like, you know what I mean? But, like, and every time I hear that story, I was like, yeah, he knew in the video game of life. He's like, oh, I'm done. Because he was going in and out of jail. He's like, I literally can't do anything here. Like, I have no job. I can't get a job. I'm like, it's too tough. like addicted,
Right.
and then boom. So if we knew that life was a video game, then it didn't matter if we died because we're infinitely connected to this universal consciousness. And remember, I always reference it like he just reset the video game. He's like, cool, didn't like let's play again.
Hmm.
But if this was true, how many more people would just replay?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's true.
You know what I'm saying? It would totally destroy the way we're like live. You're like this game sucks. Let me start again. For real though, right?
No, it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's why they want to tell us what's really going on.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one, and this one tripped me out hard. So, yeah, see, all these things are like, I don't even know if I want to know this. Like, you know. So, okay, here's one that Tom said. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna tell you the way it was phrased because it sounds so ridiculous, and then I'm gonna tell you the logic, and you're gonna be like, ah, that actually makes sense. So, what they think is UFOs might be feeding off of our emotion. Sounds ridiculous.
Sure.
Like, what are you talking about, bro?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So he likened it to this. What if, like a fly, has our brains are what's giving us emotion,
Hmm.
right? So what if a fly evolved to the point that it could create technology to travel throughout space and time? And then it happened upon this planet and was like, what is this thing, emotion? And then they started studying emotion.
Hmm.
So that's what the abductions are. Them like stealing people to analyze us. Because what is the one thing we have that they don't have is emotion. And they're like, wait, if I cut into him, he starts feeling fear. Whoa, what is that? Oh, it's love. Oh, what is that?
Hmm.
You know? It could be like they want to manufacture it for ourselves. Or what he said too is it might not be even a fly. What if it's AI? Because AI has no emotion. Like robots have no emotion.
Right.
So they came here and they're like studying us to be like, I want that thing. How do I reverse engineer that thing?
Hmm.
And they're like, that's what the abductions are. They'll abduct us, figure out some stuff, send us back.
Sure. Right.
Could be. And what if that's the thing? And it's like, that's pretty trippy too. It's like you were like cattle for them, or you know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
if you found out that you were just food for, or like a science experiment for another alien thing. Well, one, how powerless do we feel? And two, what is the galactic empire that we are not privy to? Because I think of Dune. Remember, like Dune, they were like going from planet to planet, like, oh, we're going to this planet to get some spice, and then we're
Yeah.
going to go to like this other planet with like warriors and stuff. What if we are just a planet within a whole ecosystem of planets?
Hmm. Right.
Like, how would you feel then? It's like you're actually powerless. Like those like first world problems that you think you have don't matter.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, there's this thing governing over you, you know? Like that's way bigger than your silly society.
Right.
Like how would we feel about that? Like how would you feel about that?
Something bigger than us?
Yeah. You're just like, oh, I'm actually way more insignificant than I thought I was. You know what I mean? Like
Sure. Yeah.
like that's really what like it hit me last night where it's like it's not that these things are here and we want to figure out what it is. Like for me, I was just like, oh, what is this thing, right? But it's like Pandora's box, bro. If you open this door, it's like the real question is, why is it here? It's not, is it here anymore? It's why is it here?
Hmm.
And that's the freakiest part because we don't know. And we all think we want to know. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're going to save us, blah, blah, blah. It's like, or you just find out a bunch of the things that we were just talking about. And it's like, oh, I actually didn't want to know that.
Right.
You know?
Well, we'll only know when we do find out.
True. Yeah, totally. Or they'll just keep it under wraps because we might not be able, like, what do you think? Do you think disclosure is good? Because now I'm kind of on the fence. I'm like, I actually don't know if you should tell people. Because even I'm freaking out. I'm like, bro, I read the JFK. Like, what is going on? like the MK Ultra, Operation Paperclip, you're like, wait, that's going on? That's so freaky. And that was already messing with my head. So then if I delve deeper into this thing and you find out exactly what these things are, it's like, oh, that's heavy. Because I'm walking around like, bro, you don't even know.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine that information. You're like, you don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's like make you go crazy. I don't know.
It
Thoughts?
could. I guess it could, but I would probably rather know.
You'd want to know like what the thing is. But what would you do with the information too?
Depends on what you can do with it. That's the thing, right? So if the information doesn't end up hurting anything, so I don't see it.
But then what does that do to your sense of self?
It depends on how, I guess.
You know what I mean?
I do. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And in the general public, I get that. I think it just depends on the individual, how level-minded they are, I guess, with understanding this information.
That's what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. So it's like the information's out there. Maybe this is how it is. It should be like this. It's like, we'll give you the information, but you have to do the due diligence of reading it.
No, oh, yeah, there's probably a lot of it's like that. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. Like the JFK book, right? It seems so obvious to me that he was assassinated for specific reasons, right? But now you go into general life with that information, you seem like a weirdo.
Right.
Tom DeLonge to me when I was watching that podcast, I was like, bro, you seem like a weirdo. But then I was like, let me just listen to what you're saying, because some of it might make sense. And two, other people are taking you credibly serious. So it's like, okay, so you know something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like within all this like weird talk that you're talking about, there's something. Oh, wait. I forgot to mention this. The whole stealing of emotions thing, it's been here forever, and like throughout time, theoretically. And what he's saying is that's what we're mistaking the devil for. So when you hear about like angels and demons that want to steal your soul, or like demons and the devil that want to steal your soul, it's really just like aliens being like, I want to study you.
Right.
And then we just don't know what to call them. Like, come from the sky. These things come from the sky, and they're like tampering with us, et cetera, et cetera. Which actually kind of makes sense. It's like, because why do all biblical stories talk about something that comes from the sky down to earth? I thought it was a metaphor. But what if it's not a metaphor? What if it's like a literal interpretation? They just don't know how to explain it.
Right.
Like what if it's like a plane? Like, if you were like an Aztec person now and you saw a plane, you're like, what the hell is that? It's something that came from the sky and blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah.
And it turned into myth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So like, if that's true, then that would just unweave religion for us.
Yep.
Right? You'd be like, actually, there's no such thing as the devil. It's these aliens that came down, and we just create stories about them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's another thing that could totally unravel society, because a lot of people base their lives on religion.
Yeah.
So if you got told like, actually, your religion's fake and it's all about aliens, like, what's that, bro? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All of these things are just like almost too heavy. Like, I feel like, okay, you would want to know, but you'd ignore it. You'd be like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's what's going on. But I'm not going to let that affect the way I'm doing my life. Right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it depends on what you can control. Yeah, of course. Like, is it really changing the world for, you know what I mean? Yeah, I guess in that sense.
Totally. And that's how you're interpreting it. For me, it's like, I hear that and I'm like, what is going on? Because I really want to learn stuff, but maybe there's some stuff I don't want to learn, and you can't unknow what you know, because it shapes. Because like when you know something, it shapes your.
Yeah.
Like as a simple example, like if you turn on the stove and it's hot, you've touched it for like, oh dude, that's hot. So you're just gonna avoid touching the stove. But people who don't know, it's like they're gonna touch the stove and keep burning themselves. So it's like when you know something, it automatically shapes your behavior. I will not touch that stove, because I know it's hot.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Like, you can't unknow what you know.
Sure.
So it's like, if I know what's really going on, and I know that that's going to shape my behavior going forward, do I really want to know?
That's what I'm saying. That's about understanding yourself. what level can you
Right.
get to? Yeah.
Totally. And I'm seeing in myself, I'm like, I don't know how this will shape my behavior. Like, let's say things get super bad, like around me, and I'm already nihilistic already, right? So it's like, oh, I'm just gonna reset this video game. Dude,
Yeah,
you know what I
right,
mean? You're
right,
like,
right.
bro, you just
You
killed
don't know.
yourself. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know because I don't know what I'll do with that information.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, what about other people? So it's like, and it's like that's why I feel like I'm hitting the end of this because I'm like, I just I don't know what I would do with that because that will shape my behavior going forward. Because as I know, all knowledge does, right?
Sure. But I don't know if
We're
we're
like,
gonna. I really feel like we're not gonna get to that point. We're not gonna know anything about this thing. If like what I mean in that direction, what you're saying, what Tom DeLonge is saying, I don't think we're gonna get to that point.
yeah, right. Like, there's no way. Well, I mean, that's probably why there's no way it'll happen because they
Mm-hmm.
know that this could happen.
Yeah,
Like,
probably.
that's why when George Knapp, because that was my question as soon as I heard it, him saying that on the podcast, like, what is the big secret that they don't want people to know? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what could that be? Like, there's no way. There's nothing that you could tell me that wouldn't affect me. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw the Tom DeLonge podcast. It's like, these are really heavy theories, and if one of them is true, that's a problem.
Right.
Not a problem, but like that will shape my decision making going forward.
Right. Right. Right.